So I don't know what's going on over at Marvel, but they just let two of their biggest movie releases for 2026 get leaked online. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen anything or been online in the past 48 hours. If you have no doubt seen something regarding the Avengers Doomsday trailer that did leak. But not only that, the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer that did leak. Now, there are conflicting reports regarding how many trailers there are for Avengers Doomsday. I've seen a lot of people say that they have seen two of them. However, I have only been able to find one, and there have been images that I've seen from a second one. So that one could make sense. And before anyone gets in here and says, oh, they're clearly fake, they're clearly AI, I watched the one from Spider-Man Brand New Day and I watched the one from Avengers Doomsday, and realistically, I think they're real, and someone else who is very reliable thinks they are real as well, and his name is Daniel RPK. He is a known leaker. He gets a lot of really good scoops, so definitely take all of this with a grain of salt. However, if all of you remember correctly, before Spider-Man No Way Home did come out, we got a pretty significant leak regarding Doc Ock, and there were some leaked clips that did get released, and then later that week, they decided to release an actual teaser trailer that confirmed that the leak was real. So we have to keep all that in mind when we're talking about this. However, I will not be showing anything in this video because Disney has put out a bunch of notices saying essentially if any of their trailers get leaked or any of their clips are put in videos, they are at huge risk for being taken down. So I definitely don't want that to happen. However, because I have watched them even right before filming this video, I will be getting into pretty great detail and then covering a little bit of theories and predictions I have based on those trailers. And that is why today we're going to be talking Spider-Man Brand New Day and Avengers Doomsday trailers leaked. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, so first and foremost, we will start with Spider-Man Brand New Day, mostly because I literally just watched the trailer, again, for about the 15th time. So, in this trailer, it starts off with Peter Parker doing a little bit of a monologue. However, it is presented in a way that makes you think he is telling MJ about what happened in Spider-Man No Way Home, or at least describing some of the situation, and it definitely could not be any other character because he is explaining why he did not tell her and all the events that happened. However, I think personally this is a huge misdirection because I don't think he is going to end up telling her. In fact, I think this film is going to focus on Peter having to let her go, and rather this scene is his inner monologue, him trying to tell her, him wanting to tell her, but every time he comes close to telling her, he has some reason that makes him not tell her. Whether that's some type of supervillain or some type of crazy situation that does inevitably happen when he's about to tell her, or maybe he is just reminded about all of the things she's been through since she knew, and it was a very short time that she did know his secret identity. And even in that short time, she went through kind of a lot, and he almost saw her die realistically 2 times. So it definitely makes sense, and especially when you consider the ending of Spider-Man No Way Home, him just seeing that scar and being reminded of the damage that being in his life does to her definitely makes sense how he'd be struggling with this, because on one hand, that is the love of his life, but on the other hand, being with her could just be something selfish for him. So is it really better for her to be with him, or is it better for her to have a normal life and be with someone that is normal, that isn't going to have this constant great responsibility? That definitely makes sense to me. And then a couple of the other things that we did see in this trailer, actually some of my actual favorite things that I wanted from Spider-Man Brand New Day, is a montage scene in which while he's doing that monologue, again, this is why I truly believe it is going to be more of an inner monologue versus him actually saying it to MJ, is he's talking about being Spider-Man and talking about his time as Spider-Man, especially lately. And while this is happening, we get a couple swinging scenes throughout the city. Yes, finally Tom Holland is swinging throughout the city. That is something I've wanted for so long from his Spider-Man. That is such a typical Spider-Man thing to do. Going an entire trilogy with essentially no swinging through the city was a huge miss in my opinion. So the fact that we are going to be getting something similar to that really excites me. And not only that, but we get him taking down multiple sets of villains, just doing Spider-Man things, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man things. That is what we want and need from a Spider-Man film. And then last but not least, we do have some type of idea as to what Sadie Sink's character is going to be. I know there was some speculation as to Mayday Parker or maybe Felicia Hardy, Mary Jane Watson. Again, I think all those are still possibly on the table. However, I do personally think with the dialogue that was exchanged at the end of the trailer between Sadie Sink and Peter Parker definitely hints at her being some type of antagonist. And she's giving a warning to Peter Parker to stay out of her way. So this is really important because in a way she is threatening Spider-Man. Would Mary Jane do this? No, unless they're going down the route and skipping a lot of the symbiote saga and having her be the queen who has the Carnage symbiote, which they did similarly in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. I don't know if any of you guys have checked that out. Not terrible, decent, but they could be going down a route of that. However, it really wouldn't fit with all the other characters that are appearing in this film. So that one I feel like is out. Mayday Parker, again, could it be some type of time traveler from the future coming back and she does have some relation to Peter and that's why she's telling him to stay out of the way because she knows she can't hurt him. If she does, then her lineage will be affected. She will cease to exist. I don't know if they're going to go down that route, especially considering how unsuccessful a lot of the multiverse stuff has been aside from Spider-Man. Are they going to almost double down and do something almost as complicated, which is time travel, when everyone is just asking for a grounded Spider-Man story? I don't know. However, I truly do believe that the most likely character that she is going to be is a character from the comics called Shathra. And for those of you who don't know who Shathra is, that is okay. She has never appeared in any type of live action project or even any animated project to my knowledge. Again, I haven't watched Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man as of yet, so if she's appeared in that, I will have to wait and see. Stay tuned for that, by the way. I will be doing a review in anticipation for season 2. However, back to Shathra. So she's described as a powerful mystical spider wasp, and she's a predatory deity from Loom World. Now again, what does all this mean? Basically, it means she goes around hunting these things called spider tombs, and anyone who has anything to do with Spider-Man or Spider character, if you have Spider-Gwen, Miles Morales, she does end up hunting them down, taking their power in some way, shape, or form, and she does view all of them as her food or food for her hatchlings. Now, another really interesting thing about this character is she's actually a shapeshifter. So a lot of times she does end up either deceiving Peter Parker or she ends up deceiving the public about Peter Parker and ruins the public perception of Spider-Man. So why is this so interesting and why would it totally fit? Well, for a couple of reasons. You see, we know the other characters, or at least most of the other characters that are confirmed for this film. So with that being said, if we take into consideration the Punisher and the Hulk being all but confirmed for this film, I say all but confirmed because Hulk hasn't officially been confirmed. However, it is almost officially confirmed and Frank Castle is confirmed to be returning. So a scenario in which you have to have the Punisher facing off against Spider-Man, however, not actually turning both of them bad, would be with Sadie Sink's character Shathra posing as Spider-Man and ruining the public perception of Spider-Man to the point where someone like Frank Castle needs to get involved and wants to take Spider-Man down. And then we could have a battle between Punisher and Spider-Man that totally makes sense, totally fits within the confines of the story and the greater universe of Marvel. And not only that, it also offers us an avenue, and honestly a very easy avenue, for them to squash their differences and join together to defeat Shathra once they do inevitably realize that they have both been manipulated in a way, or I do believe Spider-Man will know about this manipulation partially because of his spider sense, but also because he is directly getting this warning from this character, so he likely does know who is responsible for ruining the public's perception of him. However, once Frank Castle does learn about this, he will quickly turn sides and side with Spider-Man, so then we could get a scenario in which the two of them do go against this Shathra character. However, if you do incorporate Bruce Banner in this as well, this is a character that definitely could in some way take control of Bruce Banner. Again, she is a deity-like entity, so she has a ton of power, she has a ton of influence, and if she's a shapeshifter, maybe she could shapeshift into the Hulk and make people's public perception of the Hulk very negative, to the point where maybe Spider-Man and the Punisher have to take down the Hulk, or at least think they have to take down the Hulk. Again, there are so many different scenarios with this, especially when you consider the other villains that we do have confirmed with this film, and I do think it will be a a puppet master scenario where Sadie Sink's character is playing the chessboard and making sure all of the pieces move in the exact direction she wants. Once all this manipulation does wear off, do I think that the villains will turn on her? Maybe, but I do think it's more likely than not that they will still side with her and go up against Hulk, Punisher, and Spider-Man, and that will be the climactic battle, which to me would be really awesome, partially because Scorpion is my favorite Spider-Man villain, so either way, I will be very, very happy with it. However, all this news about Sadie Sink's character and who she could potentially be does get me even more excited because it is a character we have never seen in live action and also never in animation. Again, aside from Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, still have to check that out, but I do not believe she did appear in that either. With that being said, that is not it as far as trailer leaks. As I mentioned in the beginning, we also got a leak for Avengers Doomsday, and this one is pretty crazy, again confirmed by Daniel RPK on Twitter, that he said he does truly believe this is real, and this trailer shows us Steve Rogers. However, it is not old man Steve Rogers. It is the Steve Rogers that we left with at the end of Endgame when he does go back to return the stones and we see him dancing with Peggy. This shows him on a motorcycle going back to presumably their home together, holding up the Captain America suit from Endgame, looking at it and then looking over, seeing his baby and holding his baby. Now, this all could mean absolutely nothing. However, one of the most important keys to this footage that was leaked was the caption saying Steve Rogers will return. Now, why is this so important? Well, for a couple of reasons. They didn't say Captain America was returning, and that's important to me for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, by this point, Sam Wilson is our Captain America. Whether you love him or hate him as Captain America, and whether or not you liked the movie he was in, Captain America Brand New Day, he is our Captain America. He will be leading an Avengers team in Avengers Doomsday that has already been confirmed. He will be one of the leaders of one of the multiple teams that will appear in that film. So to have another Captain America come back would really make things difficult for a lot of people to understand, especially the general audience, and it would take away a lot from not only Sam Wilson's character, but also Steve Rogers' character, because he passed the torch to Sam Wilson. So if he just comes back and takes the torch back, it takes away a lot of the growth they had together as friends, and a lot of that trust that Steve put into Sam giving him the shield, trusting him with the mantle, even over Bucky, who was his best friend. So that was a really big moment, and I feel like if he comes back and is just Captain America, it takes away from that. So I see two real likely scenarios as to who he could actually be returning as. One, the easiest scenario would be Nomad, who he was in Infinity War. Again, he was still referred to as Captain America. However, this would show him as an actual different character. He would have an outfit more similar to Infinity War versus similar to Endgame or his other appearances as Captain America. And not only in appearance, but he would go by the title of Nomad. And I think that would be a really cool and interesting thing, especially because we do get a more rugged look for Captain America when we do get the character of Nomad. I think it would fit really well with this story. Now, as for how exactly they would introduce him back, I feel like either the Fantastic Four are the ones going to him, or it is Doctor Doom. Now, if it is Doctor Doom, I do not believe he will come back as Nomad. I think it will be a Captain Hydra situation, and if he is Nomad, he still will be on the side of Doctor Doom, because you could see how if Steve Rogers does see Doctor Doom, especially without the mask, he will see it as Tony Stark, and maybe Doctor Doom is totally honest with him about the variant situation and explains things to him to a point where it even gets Steve Rogers on board. Maybe he poses it as something that this is a huge danger to the entire multiverse, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I do think that is how they are going to get the X-Men to fight the Avengers, because I think a big theme of this movie is going to set up Avengers versus X-Men. That will be the main big clash, with Doom as the puppet master being mainly on the side of the X-Men. However, it will shift throughout the film to the end battle being both collective teams going up against Doom. I do personally believe that they will all collectively lose, and I think a couple of them might even die, specifically a lot of the X-Men characters, considering most of them are returning characters from the Fox universe, and I think Avengers Secret Wars will focus a little bit more on the Avengers characters and have the X-Men more sprinkled in, so it's a little bit less of them versus having this huge cast that we do have for Avengers Doomsday. Doomsday. However, either scenario to me sounds really cool. Either way, I do believe we are going to get an X-Men versus Avengers story, which is one of my favorite comic storylines. I think it gives us a ton of great interactions, obviously a ton of great fights, so many versus battles that a lot of us watch here on YouTube will get to be seen on screen. So that is always a really good thing. And another thing I saw other people say is that they still don't believe Spider-Man is going to be in Avengers Doomsday. And to me, yes, he has not been confirmed. He wasn't on any of the chairs that were revealed for the cast of this movie. However, Spider-Man is without a doubt Marvel's biggest character, and he outsells not only every character in Marvel, but a lot of times Superman and Batman combined. So if you want this movie to have success, do you know how you do that? You simply add Spider-Man, and there you go. You're guaranteed minimum 300 million more by just having this beloved character in the film. So for them to not include him just really wouldn't make sense to me. However, that is all I have and all of my theories regarding both of these films and all of these leaks. Now, there is a little bit more. We did get something else confirmed, which backs up the first Avengers Doomsday leak being true, and that is that they had 4 teaser trailers planned to release, and they were going to coincide with the release of Avatar. 1 teaser releasing in theaters each and every weekend, which, side note, personally, I hate. If you love the Avatar movies, that is great, more power to you. I personally am not a fan, don't enjoy them. So the fact that they are gatekeeping the trailers simply so more people will go see the Avatar movies, that is absolutely asinine in my opinion. It absolutely pisses me off, mostly because I am one of these stupid people who will buy a movie ticket each and every weekend for Avatar simply to see the trailers, and then I will leave. Will I go back and ask for a refund? No, I don't care that much about it, but it is still the principle that I'm literally going there just to see the trailer because I have no interest in watching Avatar. Now, I will only be doing this if they officially confirm that these teaser trailers will not appear online. And yes, I know there are always leaks, but I want the good quality for the trailers. And not only that, for a lot of the leaks for those specific trailers, Disney put out a disclaimer saying anyone who covers anything on those leaks or posts anything about them will have their videos taken down. So I don't want to rely on not being able to see the trailers, especially maybe even for a few days or a few weeks, because I want to be able to cover it not only for all of you guys, but for me myself, because I'm a huge nerd and I love all that shit. With that being said, I mentioned 4 trailers being released, and the first one would be the Steve Rogers trailer, which has already been leaked. Again, I can't show it here. The clips I show will most likely be just from other Marvel projects because I don't want this video being taken down. If you want to check it out, they are still up on Reddit and I believe over on Twitter/X. And after the first one, so that one is Steve Rogers giving that little, I believe it's about 25-second teaser. We do have the second one. That one will be a Thor one. Now this is the one at the beginning of the video I did mention, and I said I couldn't find an actual trailer because this one was rumored to be leaked as well. I only found images. However, I never got any confirmation whether the images were real or fake. So that's why I don't really want to cover anything I saw. If you want to go look up any of those leaks and determine for yourself if those ones are real, go for it. But I'm not going to put my stamp on it and say, hey, yeah, I think this is real, because for those pictures, I have absolutely no idea. Then after that, we do have a third trailer. That one will be Doctor Doom. And then a 4th trailer will just be a teaser trailer for the entire movie. Now, the images released alongside this list did have Spider-Man on the lineup for the 4th trailer. Now, was this an official release? No. However, I'm just holding out hope that my favorite Marvel character is going to be in Avengers Doomsday. But let me know what all of you think. Do you think all these leaks are real? And if you do think they're real, do they excite you about the films, or do they make you more nervous? And if you are excited about the films, what are you most excited about? And who do you think Sadie Sink is going to be playing in Spider-Man Brand New Day? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.